40 days. That's all it took to push the United States and Iran to the edge of a direct war, a conflict that could have reshaped the entire Middle East and disrupted the global economy overnight. Now, a ceasefire is in place. But here's the reality. Most ceasefires in this region don't fail because of one big event. They collapse because of multiple small ones happening at the same time. Tensions are still active. Armed groups are still in position. Strategic choke points are still under pressure. So the real question is not whether this ceasefire will be tested, it's how soon. Welcome to Fault Lines World, where we analyze the forces shaping global geopolitics. Today's topic, USA-Iran ceasefire, what happens next and why it could collapse. To understand where this is heading, we need to begin with how the conflict escalated and why it stopped when it did. The recent 40-day conflict between the United States and Iran did not emerge suddenly. It was the result of long-standing tensions built over decades, centered on regional influence, military presence, and strategic deterrence. The escalation began through indirect confrontation. Attacks involving allied groups and retaliatory strikes gradually intensified. What started as limited engagement quickly expanded into a broader conflict across multiple areas. Airstrikes, naval deployments, and cyber operations became key tools on both sides. However, both countries avoided full-scale conventional war. Instead, the conflict remained controlled but highly volatile. This pattern of escalation, combined with restraint, created the conditions for a negotiated pause. That pause came in the form of a ceasefire, shaped not just by the two main actors, but by a critical third party. The ceasefire was not achieved through direct negotiations alone. Pakistan played a key role as a mediator, facilitating communication between Washington and Tehran at a time when direct dialogue was limited. By acting as a diplomatic channel, Pakistan helped establish the framework for de-escalation and hosted early discussions that led to the agreement. The ceasefire terms include several core elements: a halt to direct military strikes between U.S. and Iranian forces, reduction of naval tensions, particularly in the Persian Gulf, limitations on certain proxy activities, although enforcement remains unclear, a roadmap for broader diplomatic engagement. Importantly, this is not a comprehensive peace agreement. It is a temporary arrangement designed to stop immediate escalation. Its survival depends entirely on what happens next. And one of the biggest threats to this agreement is not direct conflict, but regional spillover. Lebanon has become a major pressure point. Armed groups operating there, particularly those aligned with Iranian interests, continue to influence regional stability. Tensions along the Lebanon-Israel border have increased, with periodic exchanges raising the risk of a wider confrontation. The challenge is structural. Even if Iran reduces direct involvement, its influence over allied non-state actors is not absolute. Any escalation in Lebanon, especially cross-border attacks, could trigger a broader response. This could draw the United States back into active engagement, placing the ceasefire under immediate strain. At the same time, one of the world's most critical energy routes remains at risk. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. A significant portion of global oil shipments passes through this narrow corridor. During the 40-day conflict, tensions in the strait escalated sharply. Naval activity increased, and concerns about disruptions to shipping routes intensified. While the ceasefire includes efforts to reduce maritime tension, the situation remains unstable. Even minor incidents such as vessel seizures, drone encounters, or navigational disputes could escalate quickly. For the United States, maintaining freedom of navigation is essential. For Iran, the strait remains a key source of strategic leverage. This underlying tension has not been resolved. Meanwhile, diplomacy continues, but without guarantees. Islamabad is now the center of ongoing diplomatic efforts. Following Pakistan's mediation, the city is hosting extended peace talks aimed at turning the ceasefire into a more stable framework. These discussions involve not only U.S. and Iranian representatives, but also regional stakeholders. The agenda includes monitoring and enforcing ceasefire compliance, managing proxy conflicts, ensuring maritime security, and addressing broader regional stability concerns. However, progress is expected to be slow. The core issues, including sanctions, regional influence, and long-term security guarantees, remain unresolved. This means the talks are important, but far from decisive. Which brings us to the central question: why is this ceasefire so fragile? Several structural factors make this ceasefire inherently unstable. First, indirect actors. Much of the conflict operates through proxies. These groups may not fully comply with ceasefire terms, increasing the risk of unintended escalation. Second, lack of trust. Decades of hostility mean both sides remain highly sensitive to perceived violations. Third, unresolved core issues. The ceasefire pauses the conflict but does not resolve the underlying disputes. Fourth, regional spillover. Events in places like Lebanon can rapidly influence the broader situation. Fifth, strategic choke points. The Strait of Hormuz remains a constant risk factor. Finally, domestic pressure. Internal political considerations may limit flexibility and increase the likelihood of hardline responses. Together, these factors create a fragile balance, one where stability depends on constant restraint. This ceasefire is not a resolution, it is a test of whether two long-standing rivals can manage escalation in one of the most volatile regions in the world. A test of whether diplomacy can keep pace with pressure from the ground, the sea, and regional actors. And a test of whether a fragile pause can hold in a system designed for tension. Because if this ceasefire collapses, the consequences will not stay contained. They will move through energy markets, global trade routes, and international security frameworks with immediate global impact. In geopolitics, moments like this don't just shape regions, they define what comes next. If you want clear, fact-based analysis on the world's most critical fault lines, subscribe to Fault Lines World. Because when the balance shifts, understanding it first makes all the difference.